All right. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Look at that amount of data being transmitted. Also, I made a typo in my whatever. So yeah, looks like there is a good chance that this thing passes the 1.4 million signatures, but yeah, draftable amount 6. Okay, let's start with that.
They've already started to voice their concerns. They've been crushing these games that they don't want and these soulless, rehashed and repackaged franchises into dust. They have been laying off their staff because they overreached, overextended, and overinvested during lockdowns. And now from the top ropes, here comes Stop Killing Games. These guys, their seats are getting hot. Very hot. I think what's really getting under their skin, and what's going to get even more under their skin, is just the uncertainty. Because Stop Killing Games doesn't just have clear demand, it actually has momentum. It's something that's loud, it's well organized, and it has just enough teeth to be able to start forcing the kind of questions that these guys do not want to have to answer. And that's really what this is about. What happens when the wrong door gets open? What happens when a government committee steps forward and starts asking questions that these guys don't want to answer ever since the digital storefront era started? They've been getting around it for years. The fear isn't about what players are asking now, it's about what they might uncover next. Because if Stop Killing Games continues down the path that it is, it's not going to stop with just always online video games. That's not really the point of this. Stop Killing Games could spark a much larger conversation about digital rights ownership in a world that is increasingly more digital. That's a problem. That's a nightmare scenario for some of these companies because it extends far beyond just these video game publishers and video games themselves. It starts touching into every single other industry that's out there. And they're not going to like that because it's going to extend to movies, to music, to ebooks, to software, to everything else. And once we start asking those kind of questions, you know, what does a purchase even mean anymore? Well, the entire house of cards starts to shake. Something that I think is really important to illustrate is how far we have drifted from where this industry started and how, over time, these companies have slowly stripped away our independence. It all began with one seemingly small shift, the move from physical to digital. Because in the beginning, we bought discs and cartridges. What was shipped is what that game was. No patches, no day one updates. You owned the product, and that was the end of it. Then came the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era. Online connectivity, digital storefronts, and subscription services had now entered into the picture. And at first, it felt like progress. Consoles had been online before, sure, but now games could be updated. Developers could fix bugs post-launch. Free patches, expansions, and support. Features that were once only exclusive to PC were now accessible to everyone. And for a while, things were balanced. Most games were still using peer-to-peer or community-hosted servers. Players owned their copies. Communities were moderating themselves. Developers could continue to support their games after release, and in return, they were allowed to monetize through expansions or bonus content. It was a fair trade. Players benefited. Developers benefited. But the moment that those systems became normalized, they were used against us. The ability to be able to fix issues post-launch became a crutch, an excuse to be able to ship broken games, unfinished products to their customers. Studios were then pushed to be able to hit deadlines no matter what state the product was in. A minimum viable product was the only thing that these guys were aiming for. QA departments were gutted, content was cut from the games, developers were told to just patch it later and save the company money in the process. The bar has been lowered across the board, and leadership does not care. The product only has to be functioning just enough to be able to pass certification and collect pre-orders. Then came the next shift. Expansions gave way to DLC. DLC gave way to microtransactions, and now we can't even call them micro anymore. What began as a way to be able to extend the life of a product or a game after its launch became a business model that has sliced games into pieces, monetizing not just the content, but satisfaction itself, progression, cosmetics, modes, inventory space. All of it has been turned into revenue streams, and now many of those streams cost as much, if not more, than the actual game itself. Now, more recently, this model has taken a much darker turn. The same tools that once existed to improve our games at one point are now being used to censor, modify, devalue, and even delete them long after purchase. And this is where this conversation starts to get uncomfortable, because if I buy a product for what it is, and then later you go and change or remove that content, why am I not issued a refund? Why is there no recourse for me? Why are video games not subject to the exact same deceptive trade practice laws that apply to just about every other industry that's out there? Take Ready or Not for an example. It's a realistic, tactical first-person shooter, a spiritual successor to the SWAT series. The entire premise centers on tense, often horrific situations that are grounded in real-world procedures and consequences. That's what makes that game compelling. That's what makes it work. That's why a lot of people came to buy that game, is because of its gritty realism. That's part of its experience. But now, some of that content is being removed or outright censored so the studio can release it on console, where ratings boards are significantly more stricter than they are on PC. And while that studio has every right to pursue new platforms, PC players are the ones that are getting punished for it. Regardless of the content that's being cut or how severe it is, the fact remains, this was not a part of their intention when players made that original purchase. Players bought the game because of its unflinching realism, and now they're being retroactively handed a different product because the developer wants to make more money. But thanks to the way that end-user license agreements are written, those players have no recourse, no refund, no option to preserve the version that they paid for. Their only choice is to accept the censored product or walk away with nothing. And for me, that's why Stop Killing Games is so important. It's not just about server shutdowns. It's not just about live service and always online single-player titles. It's about how much control these companies have and how little the customer does, because it's not just that these guys can pull the plug. They can chop these games up, reconfigure them, censor them, gut them, and you don't get a say. Hell, sometimes you don't even get a warning. What used to be I get what I paid for has now become who knows what this game is going to look like next month. And I think that's where the real danger lies for this industry, because if this keeps growing, if Stop Killing Games makes it to legislators, we're no longer just talking about preserving dead games. We're talking about redefining what it means to buy something in the digital age. And that's the line that these companies do not want to see crossed. Because the truth is, we don't actually buy digital goods, not in a legal sense. What we're being sold right now is a license, a permission slip, a revocable pass to access the thing that we thought we had owned until they now decide otherwise. It's a loophole, and they've built an entire digital economy around it. If lawmakers are forced to confront that contradiction, to look at a storefront that says buy now, and then read an end-user license agreement that says we can delete this at any time, it breaks that illusion. And if that illusion breaks, it doesn't just affect games, it affects every single company that is using that exact same bait and switch. Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, Sony, Netflix. If you start forcing refunds for core features that are removed, you start mandating offline functionality for a purchased game, you define digital purchase in the same way you define a physical one, that's a nightmare scenario for these companies. It opens the door to lawsuits, class actions, mandatory consumer rights disclosures, and resale protections, which is something they definitely want to avoid. It breaks the foundation that they've been standing on for the last 15 years. And that's why these guys are scared, because if Stop Killing Games keeps pushing forward, it doesn't just threaten a few old titles, it threatens the lie that powers this entire digital marketplace, and it gives players a path forward to be able to challenge it. Why do you guys think that Video Games Europe came out with a statement? Because Stop Killing Games is hitting a nerve, because it's forcing them to answer questions out loud, questions they have always depended on consumers not asking. Why can you revoke a product after I paid for it? Why don't players have the right to preserve what they purchased? Why is it legal to change content of a game after purchase without refund, no warning, and no version control? These guys are not going to have any good answers to that. They are terrified somebody in power might actually notice, because deep down, they know that this system does not survive scrutiny. It only survives in silence. And that's the part that matters most, because underneath all of this, underneath the lies, underneath the legal loopholes, underneath the PR damage control, there is a simple truth. Players are not fighting for old games. They are fighting for the right to own what they buy. It's not just about live service. It's not just about server shutdowns. It's about agency. It's about expression. It's about being able to preserve the art, the memories, the history that you paid for without some executive deciding that it no longer fits their roadmap. This industry and a lot of other people really want this to look like a nostalgia movement. They want to frame it like it's a bunch of angry retro gamers that are trying to cling to dead titles from a decade ago, but this isn't about the past, it's about the future, because if these companies keep getting their way, this will be the new normal. A future where every game is temporary, where ownership is fake, where preservation is impossible, and where the only thing that you actually bought was just permission to be disappointed later. Something that I am not surprised by in the slightest is that some of your most favorite studios, developers, publishers, some of the most ethical ones that are out there, indies in particular, have definitely been doing this, but all of them have been standing with Stop Killing Games. I've seen people from Larian talking about it, a bunch of other studios. I've seen Lords of the Fallen CEO posted a screenshot of him actually signing the petition himself and submitting it. That runs directly against what the AAA folks are saying. So who's lying in this situation? Is it that the AAA industry just understands it better than they do? Or is it that they just don't want to let go of the reins? I've also seen a lot of people that are, server-side developers that have talked about how easy these solutions are and how so many people are trying to overcomplicate it. I've seen them get rid of a lot of or try to correct some of the misinformation that they've seen spread about Stop Killing Games. And they say at the end of the day, it all just comes down to control and money. That's the only thing that these guys care about. And, one thing that I want to be known is that the AAA industry made their bed. Now they have to sleep in it. It didn't have to be this way. These guys just had to keep pushing. They had to keep prodding. They had to keep squeezing you for everything you're worth and trying to control you in any way they possibly can. Not a single person sitting in a room said that, $100 skins, $80 prices might be a little bit too much. Nah, you just had to push people over the edge. And that's what makes something like this happen. That's why people are so for this. That's why there's so much support with something like this. And the financial trauma that something like this can cause to these companies is going to be beautifully catastrophic. It's going to be fantastic. Pure cinema. I can't wait to cover it. With how volatile this industry has become over the past couple of years, you guys got to look at the entire timeline of all the things that have happened in this industry, all the different layoffs, all the different money lost, the studio closures, the games that flopped, all of that stuff has made this industry just a bottle of soda that's been shaken up. And at this point, what we're going to start to see is some real change, both for consumer rights, for pricing, and also just for higher quality games. I cannot properly express how awesome it is to see something like this happen. It brings so much joy to me as somebody that does like 90% of their content around just bitching about what these companies do and being sick and tired of how they mistreat their customers. And it's just great to see, because in a lot of cases, the internet tends to be covered with mostly meaningless drama. So it's really cool to see the video game community specifically come together and support something like this, and come together to defend themselves and also the gamers in the future. Again, regardless of the outcome of something like this, in a lot of cases it ends up being the intention more than anything else, and sometimes that's enough to turn things around. Luckily, we have a lot more than intention this time around. We are barreling towards the unknown, especially when it comes to digital rights ownership, digital storefronts, online economies, all of this stuff. This technology, while it's been around for a little while, it's still one of the youngest industries that are out there. And we don't really know where it's leading. And it would be really cool if it was the video game community that were the ones that pumped the brakes before everybody just veered straight off of a cliff. And I think that's what's going to happen. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. I need more people to share my videos. Please share my video. Grow my influence. Make me popular. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and I'll catch you guys next time. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
Imagine this, you bought a game for let's say $60, you've put in countless of hours.
Hello, today we're talking about the 1 minute that's missing from Jeffrey Epstein's footage. We're talking about the mystery man that appears after lockdown. Who is it? We'll try to get into it because it's not mentioned in the 2023 OIG report. Now, just yesterday, we already talked about the DOJ FBI memo that was obtained by Axios saying that Epstein killed himself, that you guys should stop making conspiracy theories because Kash Patel and Dan Bongino would never lie to you. Even though previously they said, yeah, it's probably, there's a cover-up. Now they're saying there definitely is no cover-up. And in fact, the FBI director, Kash Patel, went on Joe Rogan to tell everybody, you guys are crazy, and we're going to release the inside the jail cell footage proving it.
And you're going to get the video of the cell, and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
So apparently, we're going to get footage of the cell, which is why when the DOJ dropped a 10-hour video during the time of Epstein's death, people understandably thought this was footage of his cell. Here's what this looks like. It's CCTV footage, but this is not actually Epstein's cell, nor is this door. This is footage of a common area. Epstein's door is way back over here in the corner. You can't see it from this footage angle, but you'd understandably not know that because of the way Kash Patel made it sound. He made it sound like we're definitely dropping the real video. You're going to get outside a periscope view of Epstein's cell.
There's just no way that you could have run an op and had people go into that cell and not have any video of it, and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy, he shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in. If they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
Yeah, it was in the news. It's also in the OIG's actual report. Like, the government report admits that most of the cameras were not recording. Now, I'm going to show you which cameras were and were not reporting. I'm going to show you the exact angles of these cameras. But I want to draw your attention to one of the weirdest things in all of this footage, which is just the fact that there's a minute of it missing. You're going to want to look at this time, and you'll see in about 3 seconds it will jump and the framing will change. So there you can see there was a cut or some kind of edited footage. And it obviously begs the question, why is there a minute missing from the FBI's like prove it tape? But also, what does this tape even prove? As I said, this is not Epstein's cell, nor is this his cell. We're going to show you what that actually looks like. Here's the framing we see, and now we're going to compare that to the official report, June 2023, of Epstein's cell. They lay out a structure of the jail cell and the jail itself, and here you can see it's a two-leveled system. There's a lower tier, there's an upper tier, and Epstein was in the L tier, okay? Here is where the camera actually was that we're seeing. We're going to go ahead and go through this so you can see that's what it looks like. There's upper floor, lower floor. Epstein was located on the upper floor in what's called the L tier, okay, which is right here. You can see it even better from here. Here's Epstein's cell. Here's the hallway. And right here is the camera, which was not recording. Unlike what Kash Patel sort of insinuates that they're going to release that footage, they don't have that footage. According to them, the recording wasn't working. It was streaming, but not recording. The footage apparently had the DVR system stopped working about 10 days before all of this happened. This is in their own report. That's not me saying that. Around July 29th, I believe, it stopped recording as it was supposed to. Now, here's where you can see what actually was recording the day of. So you can see this is the camera that we have access to. and it's looking this way. So that camera footage we see is not of Epstein's cell at all. You can't see it. Instead, this is the guard station over here, and the staircase is like this little, like 3 pixels right there. So it's an actual joke if you think that this footage somehow had a perfect line of sight of Epstein's jail cell and you couldn't have run an op, right? Even during the missing 1 minute window because, oh, we had a perfect line of sight on his door. They don't, and the cameras were not recording. As testified here, like, and it's crazy, the FBI director is spreading misinformation going, oh, I don't know who told you that. You guys told us that. These cameras right here are streaming, but not recording. You can see it right there. There's Epstein's cell. That's the camera that would have been on him. It's not there. And yet he goes in front of millions of people and tells people otherwise. It's so irresponsible.
The cell. And if they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
Yeah, again, it wasn't just in the news. It was in the government's report. Okay, so that's that. So now we're gonna see the camera that we're actually getting footage of, right? So this is a video. You can see that's cell 46. Here's the camera that was recording, and you can see it highlighted here. You'll also be able to see that the staircase is partially obstructed because of this wall right here, okay? So these tiny 3 pixels are seeing the edge of the staircase. Here's where they even highlight it for you. Again, this is not my diagram. This is the government's own diagram. This is the stairway to Epstein's cell. Here's the officer station, as we stated. And here's the non-recording camera. Again, this is the government and looking at Epstein's cell. According to them, there had been catastrophic disk failures and no recordings would have been available after July 29th, 2019. And of course, all this happened on August 9th to the 10th, 2019. Now, an important thing is this mystery man that comes up in the footage, because previously I was kind of thinking this footage kind of didn't show anything. It definitely doesn't show that nobody was there because you can't really see it. The important cameras are missing, and there are ways to get in or through the staircase without people seeing you, which we'll kind of go over here. I think the idea that this was a perfect view of the staircase is just completely wrong, obviously. But there was also a whole narrative by the government that everybody was in their jail cell by 8 p.m. This is according to the staff. They say at approximately 8 p.m. August 9th, all inmates were locked in their cells for the evening, and there was no indication that any other inmate could have gotten out of their cells. Epstein didn't have an inmate, so hence the idea is there's no way anyone could have gotten in there because everyone was locked up, right? Of course, we know now that some of the guards allegedly were either asleep or they deny that and they say they may have dozed off. Either way, what is for sure is that they didn't perform their checkups on the inmates. And
oh well, unfortunate. Good, it's Brooklyn. Bebeğim. ใช่ไหม Excuse me. Eat.
In fact, they falsified records to this, and they say no CO had checked on Epstein from approximately 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until 6:30 a.m. when Epstein was found. But this 10:40 p.m. is going to become extremely important because it turns out there was someone, what looks to be an inmate, out of his cell at 10:40 p.m. And the question is, who is that person? You can see this at 10:38 p.m. Remember, everyone's supposed to have been in their jail cell for 2.5 hours at this point. No prisoners. You can see a guard goes over to somewhere out of sight. We can't see it. None of the cameras were recording except for this one. And then moments later, we see a little bit of orange near the staircase. Now I'm going to have to zoom into this. It's extremely hard to see. But you can see...
So, you recommend Chioria Boutique's seasonal children's clothing line? In that case, I shall place an order. Greetings, traveler.
Hey there.
A rare opportunity to take a vacation has arisen, and I plan to use it to visit the Melusines in Merosi Village. It has been some time since my last visit, and as such meetings are hard to come by, I wish to prepare some gifts. As you are here, might I solicit your advice? I believe you have already befriended a number of Melusines. As such, your insights would be most valuable. Indeed, given the environmental variations there, some waterproof paints would make a good gift. Then I shall leave their procurement to you. Thank you. Prioritize what you like, without regard to cost. I will ensure you have an ample budget. Oh, I fear my culinary experience only extends to making soups.
Oh well.
Sidine, are there any foods particularly popular among the Melusines recently? Oh. I understand. Everyone has different tastes, and in the interests of fairness and justice, we should have prepared a greater variety of gifts from the start. It is decided. Every one of those ideas shall be adopted. Thank you both for your suggestions. Once the purchases have been made, I will have someone package them up and send each to their respective recipients. Sidine, I believe your delivery address is still the Palais Momonia, yes? Of course. As I said, opportunities like this are hard to come by, so every Melusine should receive a gift. And you are a Melusine too, are you not?
Okay. Under the sea, under the sea. Hello.
I love diving too. Oh, hey. Long time no see. I'm talking with him. Mm-hmm. It might seem odd to you. Really? I thought that was something that only happened in picture books. All right. Then I'll share them with you. Oh, you want to hear them too? Okay, listen closely. Legends speak of a time long, long ago, when there was a blubber beast who strayed from his family and friends, and lived all alone in the pitch-black depths of the sea. Even as he bravely lived on in solitude, he kept searching for his family, until one day, a diver who loved to explore found him. The blubber beast had never seen a human before, and was scared at first. But the diver gave him lots of food, and promised to return the next day. And just like that, they became fast friends. Every time the diver came, the blubber beast would happily dance and slap his belly, singing the songs of the blubber beasts. The diver also adored his round belly, and could never resist giving it endless belly rubs. The blubber beast also adored the feeling of belly rubs, but since he had terrible eyesight, he only ever saw the diver's blurry silhouette. So, whenever he saw a human form approach, he'd happily dance, patting his belly and singing.
Belly Mastrab.
Good boy. Here, have some fish. I just caught them, so bon appetit. I wish that was where the story ended, but... one day, that diver stopped coming altogether. The blubber beast waited for a long, long time. Finally, he gathered the courage to go and look for the diver, swimming off in the direction the diver had swum off to, until he had finally reached the beach. And that's where the picture book I have ends. I don't know how the rest of the story goes. Our two friends might have... Oh, don't be sad. It's just a story. It's not real. I think. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Oh, want some more fish? Give me a second. I should still have some more. I wonder... Just what does a blubber beast's belly feel like? So I guess I'll go for it then? Wow. This is really something. A world removed from petting Lynette's cat. Wow.
Water comes in many flavors to the discerning palate. Mondstadt's water is crisp and pure, while water from Liyue has an enduring aftertaste. In Inazuma, the water possesses a depth of flavor unlike any other. Sumeru's water, meanwhile, has a rich and complex flavor profile, but it must be savored patiently to fully appreciate it. Melusines are beautiful creatures. They are the pride of Fontaine. Be sure to befriend them and cause them no harm. Water comes in many flavors to the discerning palate. Mondstadt's water is crisp and pure, while water from Liyue has an enduring aftertaste. In Inazuma, the water possesses a depth of flavor unlike any other. Sumeru's water, meanwhile, has a rich and complex flavor profile, but it must be savored patiently to fully appreciate it. I see the value in my own work, but I also see the meaning in all the endeavors of the people of Fontaine. I believe I will continue to take pride in fulfilling my duties. Water comes in many flavors to the discerning palate. Mondstadt's water is crisp and pure, while water from Liyue has an enduring aftertaste. In Inazuma, the water possesses a depth of flavor unlike any other. Sumeru's water, meanwhile, has a rich and complex flavor profile, but it must be savored patiently to fully appreciate it. Melusines are beautiful creatures. They are the pride of Fontaine.
Okay,
Be sure to befriend them.
this
Cause
way.
them no harm.
Well, let's just oh, I guess this door. Wow. I'm entering one of the darshans or something? No, it's just a library. Here's Kalei.
Oh, okay, I've got it. Thank you, Kale.
Unfortunate.
Understood. Thanks again, Kale.
Well, I can go for one pull. 160. Nothing here. Oi, oi. All right. Nothing else. All right. If you say so.
These guys have completely lost control, and I don't think that they know what's going to happen next. The AAA industry is terrified right now, and these rats are coming out of the cave because Stop Killing Games has made so much.
Сегодня модно всюду выискивать красные флаги. Нас учат распознавать их в партнерах, родственниках, кошке и даже в самом себе. Но что значит красных флагов в мире медицины? Как отличить нормального врача от мракобеса? Представляю вашему вниманию прикладное руководство на примере одного любопытного персонажа – докторе Берге.
Всем привет!
Спойлер, на самом деле он не доктор, а хиропрактик.
Я переверну ваш мир с ног на голову.
А еще член одного культа, спойлер, это будет в конце.
Я вас уверяю, мое поведение станет совершенно неадекватным.
Продавец чудо-БАДов и, если верить его собственному сыну, тот еще любитель контроля. Зато с 7 миллионами подписчиков на русскоязычном канале и 13 миллионами на англоязычном.
Никакой научности здесь и близко нет.
Скорее всего, ваши родные его смотрят, а может даже внимают его вредным советам, что и делает это видео особенно актуальным. Я уже упоминал Берга в своем рейтинге мракобесов, да и хиропрактику подробно разбирал в видео про остеопатию. Потом посмотрите. Но углубленное изучение деятельности Берга показало, что я вообще его недооценивал. Такой дичи даже я не видел давно, хотя всю взрослую жизнь занимаюсь изучением всевозможной псевдонаучной ерунды. Если бы в палате меры весов хранился эдакий эталон медицинского мракобеса, это был бы доктор Берг, а других мракобесов можно было бы оценивать в микробергах. Но главный парадокс и глобальная несправедливость, конечно же, в том, что любой самый базовый терапевт в вашей районной поликлинике, скорее всего, в миллион раз компетентнее доктора Берга. Но советы о том, как правильно жить и лечиться, вероятно, вы слышали именно от последнего. Может, даже сами того не подозревая. Всем привет, меня зовут Александр Панчин, я член комиссии РАН по борьбе с лженаукой и биолог по образованию. И сегодня мы подробно в деталях и даже схемах разберем суть этого мракобесия, в котором, как в капле воды, отражается весь океан безумной альтернативной медицины. Обязательно смотрите видео до конца, будет настоящее цунами. Возможно, красные флаги, которые мы обнаружим у доктора Берга, помогут нам критичнее относиться к любым псевдонаучным медицинским утверждениям. Пока мы обсуждаем красные флаги, вы можете стать настоящим зеленым. Это не рядовая просьба, ваша финансовая поддержка реально помогает нам делать качественные видео, приглашать научных редакторов, проводить качественные факт-чекинги, делать науку более понятной и наглядной. Переходите по QR-коду или ссылке в описании и поддержите нас любым удобным способом. Бусти, Patreon, спонсорство YouTube, крипта. Спасибо.
Red flags.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome! Hi, to Ask the Deaf Mawika. Mawika is getting her first rerun banner, and that obviously means, as usual, that we gotta record the Ask the Deaf video. So, without further ado, how good is Mawika? Well, she's pretty good. In terms of damage, she is, without any real competition, currently the strongest carry. That being said, damage is not the only factor that matters, but that's starting to become the case a little bit less. The release of Stygian Onslaught has created a situation where you need more different teams, right? 3 teams instead of 2, and the DPS requirements for those teams is much higher than it is in Abyss. That's going to make it so that the outright damage numbers matter a lot more than they do in Abyss. And the DPS calcs also matter a lot more, because the amount of time you have to spare in Stygian Onslaught is generally a lot less than the amount of time you have to spare in Abyss. It creates a situation where characters that trade off some DPS for quality of life can end up in situations where you just don't have enough DPS to clear on Stygian Onslaught anymore. or at the very least, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to clear. Because, sure, it's easier to do your rotations right, but if you need to do literally perfect gameplay with no mistakes to just barely clear in time, it'll be harder to play than a team that's a bit more difficult, but where you have wiggle room because you surpass the DPS requirement by a noticeable margin. In other words, Stygian Onslaught is a Neuvillette nerf. Before the release of Stygian Onslaught, when the endgame content was pretty much just Abyss because IT is a joke, I said that Neuvillette was the best unit in the game. But now, honestly, I don't think that's the case anymore because of Stygian Onslaught. Does that mean that the best carry other than Neuvillette is now the best unit in the game? No, it doesn't. Supports are broken. The only reason I had Neuvillette ahead of everyone else, or ahead of the supports, was because you could slap the most worthless dogshit team with Neuvillette and still reach the DPS requirements for Abyss in almost every Abyss, which gave you a lot of flexibility for what you could play on your second side. But a little bit of flexibility here doesn't matter. It matters less because you require more total teams. Requiring more total teams also means you require a lot more total supports. You need supports that don't need to be used by the same carries. I think that Stygian Onslaught has made it so that having the good supports matters even more than it used to. And so she has gone up in my mind in terms of unit power, but not to the point of being the best unit. I'd say that that title right now is being fought over in between SKG and Bennett. But I think it's very reasonable to say that Maoika is the strongest carry. I saw a video not too long ago, I think it was by TGS, comparing Skirk and Maoika, and I'm gonna try to remember to leave a link in the description so you guys can go watch that if you're interested in his take on it. The premise of his video was basically like, how does Skirk compare? And his conclusion was basically, there are some situations where Skirk can compare favorably, but generally Maoika is just better. And I think that's a fair conclusion, but I also think that with what we have seen from Stygian Onslaught in the first lineup and with the leaks for the next lineup, it's incredibly clear. And I think that's a fair conclusion, but I also think that with what we have seen from Stygian Onslaught in the first lineup and with the leaks for the next lineup, it's incredibly clear that it doesn't matter who the best carry is. Because no matter how good your carry is, if it's a hydro carry or a cryo carry, some situations where Skirk can compare favorably, but Skirk and Maui.
Oh, look at the arm.
Guys, Skirk has been out for more than a week now, and after testing her out at multiple investment levels, I have a pretty good idea of how strong she is. In this video, I'll talk about my findings and my updated calculations on her, and whether or not I think she's strong enough to contend with Mavuika as the best DPS in the game. So, first things first, Skirk is a bit better than I thought she would be in pre-release. This is mainly because, shortly before she came out, they essentially buffed her attack speed by quite a bit. This only applied starting from the Creator Experience Service release and wasn't the case in any beta prior. In my original assumptions, I thought that at most she'd be able to complete 4 chains of her full normal attack strings, but it turns out she can do a bit more than that. As a whole, combo-wise, you can do a couple different things, and so I'll categorize them separately. First is the Mindless combo, basically a combo where you use the Elemental skill, then burst immediately, then do 3 full strings of normal attacks while dashing midway through the 5th normal attack animation to cancel it, then do 1 or 2 normal attacks, a charge attack to absorb the void rifts and replenish her point bar, and then attack until her window ends. What makes this mindless is that you basically use everything as soon as it's available. The burst at the start of her window, and then you spam attacks until you have to use a charge attack to maintain her uptime. An improvement to this would be using her elemental burst at a different time. In fact, using the burst right after the elemental skill is a tad bit slow in terms of animation time, and so as an alternative you can use it to cancel a normal attack animation and speed up her combo execution as a result. For example, you can use her skill, then do a full normal attack string, and then use the burst after the 5th normal attack. Skirk's 5th attack is her slowest one in terms of animation time if you don't cancel it. So just from an animation standpoint, it makes sense to cancel it with the burst. After that, you can proceed as before for as long as her skill lasts. The only problem with this combo is that the burst buffs her normal attacks by a bit, and while that's not super significant, it makes her first normal attack string weaker. As a result, as a final alternative, you can simply use the burst a bit earlier. So skill, 1 or 2 normal attacks, then you use the burst, and then you go on like in the previous combos until the skill ends. This is the combo that, for me, produced the best total damage for her rotations. By itself, this buff made Skirk's best team quite a bit more competitive from a DPS standpoint, putting it in range with the Mavuika Mel teams that use Shilonen. It's not exactly at the same DPS level, but it's in a close enough range that it can go one way or another depending on the exact scenario or matchup. But let's put a pause on this whole Skirk and Mavuika thing for a second, because I want to talk to you about this new interesting game I stumbled upon, Silver and Blood Requiem, which is the sponsor of this video. This game's got a dark medieval gothic. Now, Mavuika does have an upper theoretical level compared to the Mel team I've shown, which is the variant where you replace Shilonen with a Constellation 6 Janssen. This is currently the damage ceiling for Constellation 0 5-stars, and it surpasses the Skirk team by quite a bit. Personally though, I consider the Shilonen variant of the Mavuika Mel team the best in a general sense, because Shilonen is amazing at generating fighting spirit for Mavuika. In fact, Shilonen's value here comes from generating 90 points for Mavuika very quickly, which helps making the composition consistent. While the Janssen variant can still maximize her point gauge throughout a full rotation, there are plenty of situations where Mavuika ends an Abyss room early and has less points than you'd expect at the start of the next room. That's where Shilonen comes in handy. Also, in the new endgame mode, the Stygian Onslaught, where you start with 0 energy, or in Mavuika's case at 0 fighting spirit, Shilonen being able to fill her gauge so quickly becomes really helpful in the first rotation of the fight. The bottom line here is that Skirk's best team has similar DPS as one of the best Mavuika teams, and that's very impressive. Of course though, there is...
Okay, alright, that's going to be it for the stream. Good luck, have fun, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.